Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to Utility Sports. We have a huge trade in the NBA, the biggest trade probably of the offseason, depending on how you view Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell. Those two players, both part of fire sales from the Utah Jazz. Welcome, everyone, to the live stream. Go ahead, smash that like button right now if you are new to Utility Sports. We have a huge trade in the NBA. I cannot believe how massive of a trade this is right now, going down between the Utah Jazz and the Cleveland Cavaliers. And as you can see on the screen, the Utah Jazz trade Donovan Mitchell to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Here is the full trade. We are going to pull it up for you live right now. I want you guys to all see it. This is according to Adrian Wojnarowski, part of a huge blockbuster trade in which Cleveland is pushing their chips in with their young core that they already have. And it's going to be a monumental trade between these two teams, and one that could really impact the NBA for quite some time. It is a seriously big deal. Latinx, thank you so much for the super sticker. Welcome everyone to the comment section right now. Make sure to leave a little bit of a comment with some hype in the chat saying, oh, wow, I can't believe this happened. Give me your thoughts and everything. I'm going to be working on putting up the actual trade details right now. So we're going to go ahead, jump over to it. Welcome, everyone, again to the stream here. I'm super excited. And here it is. According to Adrian Wojnarowski, full trade. Utah, the Jazz are trading Donovan Mitchell to Cleveland for Lauri Markkanen. So there goes some of their size there. Ochai Agbaji, Colin Sexton as well. 3 unprotected first-round picks and 2 pick swaps. So definitely a massive package going out the door from Cleveland. But now Donovan Mitchell finds himself in a lineup that has not only Donovan Mitchell, but also has Evan Mobley, has Jarrett Allen, and you can also throw into that Darius Garland. So you're looking at a very good team. And really the only question is, who's their small forward? Who are they going to play there? Of course, Ochai Agbaji. He's out the door now as well. And Colin Sexton actually signs a 4-year, $72 million deal with the Cleveland or with the Utah Jazz now in this deal. So it's huge, absolutely crazy. 3 unprotected first-round picks, 2 pick swaps. We're talking about huge deal. Someone says no defense. I think you haven't watched Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley play. Those two guys are 2 of the best defensive bigs in the league. Evan Mobley's a freakish defender who can switch out on the perimeter and has a ton of length and size as well for the interior. And additionally, when you're looking at this team with Jarrett Allen, he brings a lot of rim protection. So they're very good. It's Dom says it. That's lit. I think so as well. This is absolutely crazy. Welcome everyone to the live stream again. Make sure to smash that like button if you're excited for this next NBA season. This is such a huge trade. And X Factor wants to know why Ochai. He would have been the perfect player to keep in this for sure. But trading him, they probably had to give up some of that value in a deal. And Utah felt, hey, we want this guy. And they went ahead and they pulled him in. I'm kind of surprised here for Utah as well. They're bringing in some decent players in this. And Markkanen, Agbaji, and also Colin Sexton. I thought maybe they would want to really bottom out, take in some bad contracts if it meant they could get some more draft compensation. But they decided to not go that way. I thought they were going to want to really bottom out and have a terrible team. Doesn't seem like they're going to be quite there. But overall, it's a very, very tough team to look at and watch this year if you're a Jazz fan. They're going to be bad. Don't get me wrong. Percy Jackson said, this is unbelievable. I was starting to have feelings that Cleveland could maybe get into it. I was actually going to record a video for tomorrow. Luckily, I did not spend my time doing that today, recording a video on how I thought the Cavaliers and Knicks were probably the 2 teams at the top here now. For Donovan Mitchell, just when you looked at their roster construction, it made sense for them to push their chips in while they have, a young core that was growing. They still do have Karis LeVert, who I would have to guess comes off the bench for them. And they still do need that wing, like Texas Sports says. Texas Sports, I love your new profile picture there with the little Jalen Green art. That looks awesome as well. Thanks for stopping in again, Texas Sports. Derek says, man, the Knicks messed up. It's comical that the Knicks struck out again. They did. And now, would I have been in favor of them giving up 4 or 5 firsts for Donovan Mitchell? Probably not. But at the same time, you have to really consider the fact that they need to get that first star. They haven't had multiple All-Stars before, in quite a while. They just don't have All-Star level players very frequently in New York, which is kind of taboo. You would think New York, that market, attracts a ton of them. They just don't. This was their opportunity, and they didn't do it. TDE says Garland, Mitchell, Mobley, and Allen. That quartet of that core that they're building there. Kobe Altman's doing a great job bringing in some of these players. I mean, look at those 4 names. You've got Garland, who was an all-star this past year. Allen was an all-star this past year. Maybe Allen, not fully a true all-star. He was an injury replacement. I'm not sure if he's a fully deserving all-star, but ultimately he's a really good player. That's really the end goal there. Evan Mobley, someone who could be a freak offensively and defensively. He's very, very good. And I think year 2, year 3, we're going to see even bigger steps from him moving down the road. And then Donovan Mitchell, 3-time all-star. He steps up his play in the playoffs as well. So I think Donovan Mitchell's a really big get for them, a team that was supposed to be in the playoffs, missed it because of the play-in tournament, lost to Brooklyn, and then also ultimately ended up losing to the Atlanta Hawks on their way in. But they're at a spot where they weren't able to get into the postseason, and now with New York striking out on this, extending RJ Barrett, it opened the door for Cleveland to go out and make a move here. They still do have Kevin Love as well, so that's a pretty good depth piece. They still have Dean Wade, too, who I think can leave an impact for them. My guess is if I had, looking at who they're probably going to start, I would guess Isaac Okoro at the 3 right now. And that's a little bit of a tough one for me. I know his 3-point percentage looks like he's an okay shooter. He's not on average, according to a lot of advanced data from Second Spectrum, Synergy, that kind of stuff. Teams tended to leave him wide open, about 9.5 feet of distance on every 3-point shot he took this past year, which is insane space. That's insane that they don't even respect him at all. Now, he knocked down an okay percentage of them, but Okoro is not not a great option. Zach the Potato says Kevin Love small forward. Yeah, I don't think that's going to really work, but they might just be crazy and try it. Who knows? Joshua Graham, Cavs still have LeVert and Okoro. Can they have small ball, small forward? I think with LeVert, that might be who takes some of those minutes too. I think actually a player to watch, a lot of you might not even know who this guy is, Lamar Stevens. If you watch Cavs basketball, you'll know who he is. It's not like some, name drop that nobody knows, but he's a player who's a little bit more reserved for people who are really super in tune with the NBA. Lamar Stevens is someone who is a really good hustle defender, and I think could give them a lot of good energy at that small forward spot. So I think LeVert, Okoro, Stevens, those 3 probably share it. Maybe Dean Wade at the 3 a little, but I don't think they love that. And CJ Godin says they literally trade off Ochai. Yes, they did, which is crazy. It's sad to see Ochai go, but it's a dangerous game, and out there we see some young rookies coming in. Ochai Agbaji, Walker Kessler, both now in Utah, which is crazy. Dewey wants to know whether the trade details are right here on the screen. Utah is trading Donovan Mitchell to Cleveland to the Cavaliers for Lauri Markkanen, Ochai Agbaji. Nice typo there from Adrian Wojnarowski. Colin Sexton. 3 unprotected first-round picks and 2 pick swaps, which is a lot of compensation to give up. And Utah's going full tank mode here. They also signed Colin Sexton to a 4-year, $72 million deal with his rights. And they're at the point now in Utah where this team's completely blown up. We'll probably see a Mike Conley, Bojan Bogdanovic trade coming relatively soon, if I had to guess. We saw Patrick Beverley already get dealt to the Los Angeles Lakers. So there's been a lot of moves already. Utah's really been open for business this offseason. Of course, started with the huge Rudy Gobert trade to the Minnesota Timberwolves. I actually got to speak with some executives there from the Minnesota Timberwolves. I spoke with their president and also their senior vice president of basketball operations about their moves. And both of them spoke very, very glowingly of Rudy Gobert, which is what you'd expect after giving up 4 first-round picks. But it's definitely a crazy situation here at this point where Danny Ainge came in. I told you guys a year ago that Danny Ainge, the moment he got hired, he was going to look to blow this team up. That if they failed in the postseason again, which they did, that he would deconstruct this roster. And he has done that. I put out a tweet a while ago, too, saying that I would be surprised if Donovan Mitchell's on the Jazz a few years from now. And here he is. He's not even making it to this season on the Utah Jazz. Yes, they do have Karis LeVert. I am just naturally lower on Karis LeVert than I think everybody else is. I think he's a good bench scorer. I don't think he's much more than that. Soldier Boy says, I'm glad the Knicks didn't get him. They would have gave up too much, but the Cavs are going to look good. The Cavs are going to look really good. And similar to Minnesota here, let's talk about the compensation. So Minnesota gave up a lot for Gobert. The reason I liked it for Minnesota, they had 26-year-old Cat, 26-year-old D'Angelo Russell, 21-year-old Anthony Edwards. Those picks, yes, they're important, but when you have a nice young core, you're less worried about them. Here for Cleveland, they have Darius Garland, who's young, going into now his 4th year in the league. They have Evan Mobley, who's going into year 2, and Jarrett Allen really just starting to break out in his own way. He's in his mid-20s. So they're young, they're talented. They're going to be really dangerous as well, this Cleveland team is. And I think Utah really kind of shaped the NBA this year, not with their own roster, but more so with what they've been able to give up. Cleveland's going to take a massive step forward. We're also going to see Minnesota take a huge step forward this year. And it's a big reason because of what Utah has really sent out the door. Because ultimately this team, I thought Utah was pretty good. I think that they needed a few defensive perimeter pieces that could have really complemented this roster. They in turn decided that, hey, we're going to go the draft pick route. Danny Ainge has had success with that before in some of his big trades with, the Brooklyn Nets. That's probably the most notable trade in NBA history. So Danny Ainge knows what he's doing. It's just there's a lot of unknown answers right now for Utah with some of the big questions that they've got. Derek says the Cavs got the better end of the trade. Right now in the comment section, I want you guys to comment who got the better end of the deal here. Comment your draft or your trade grades here, for Utah and also for the Cleveland Cavaliers. I'll go through them, and then also in a little bit I will be showing my own trade grades as well here. Jossie says, full rebuild. That is exactly where they're going. I like your profile picture, by the way, Ja. Very cool one. Cody Abell says, I'm in Salt Lake and just got a little more excited to go watch some games. Nobody coming in to jack up ticket prices, but fun players to watch. That is completely true. They're in a situation now where it's going to have some cheap basketball on the court. Fan attendance is probably going to go down a bit. But if you're really a basketball diehard, you'll enjoy watching some of these guys. Markkanen, Agbaji, Sexton. They also have Walker Kessler. The one thing about this trade is it does kind of flesh out some of their starting lineup this year. You'd have to guess Walker Kessler starts at the 5. Sexton's going to start in the backcourt. You'd also assume Agbaji, Markkanen start. And then from there, you can fill in some other pieces. They'll trade Mike Conley and Bojan Bogdanovic for sure at some point. Travion says Cavs in the playoffs for sure. I think so as well. Caleb says W by the Jazz. He's a 76ers fan. Again, I like your little profile picture there, Caleb. That looks sweet. But I think the Jazz here probably get a W in this one. Isaiah Coyle, when do you see Pistons being true contenders? We'll talk about the Pistons a little bit later, but as of right now, probably 3-4 years from now when they start to really make some noise. Taryn says, Danny said I'm going to stick it to the Knicks. He did stick it to them, that's for sure. Big J says, yo, Cleveland got no bench, no draft ability, can't take no injuries or COVID protocols. They're a little thinner now for sure, but part of why they've done this is they have a true big four, which is what we've seen Minnesota build. And again, I keep going back to Minnesota. There's a lot of similarities between Minnesota and Cleveland right now. Both of these teams are very lengthy and big. Both of these teams have pretty good backcourt duos. You look at Garland, Mitchell compared to D'Lo and Ant. That's two good backcourts. And you have two good forward and center pairings in Cat and Gobert, and now also Mobley and Allen. So you're looking at this team as a real threat in the East to be for sure a playoff team, but ultimately a really good regular season team that I think down the road, let's say Mitchell gets a little bit better. Mobley gets a little bit better. Mobley's going to get a lot better, but even let's say just a little. Darius Garland just gets a little bit better, and Jarrett Allen gets a little bit better. This team's going to be great. And that's the nice thing is you're banking on young guys progressing still a little bit more, which I really do believe in. And I think this team is going to be good. I think the Cavs will for sure make the playoffs tie now. Chivalrous says my Cavs could have had a way better run in the next few years than the run they'll have with Mitchell. Maybe, but there's nothing guaranteed about that as well. Because, Cleveland's not a free agency destination unless LeBron would have went back there after his new extension with LA expires. And then at that point, you're getting like 40-year-old LeBron. Like, really, what are you going to do? This is a really good opportunity for this team to build forward with a young player. There's only one risk here for Cleveland. And that's what I want to talk about right now. The only risk here is Donovan Mitchell's got 3 years left on his deal. What if he hates Cleveland? What if he's saying, I'm going to force my way out of here? They're still potentially going to owe draft picks a year after he leaves, potentially. That's really the only risk for this team. right now is, hey, Donovan Mitchell just doesn't like it here. Otherwise, I think the roster fits good. I think the ball's going to be in Darius Garland's hands, and I think Mitchell's going to be that go-to scorer, which is what I think they needed. I really like this for them. Obviously, it's a little bit of a delicate situation just because they had already given up a pick. They already owe a pick, to the Indiana Pacers for the Caris LeVert trade, which I did not like that trade for them when they made that. And you can see why. Caris LeVert is a good player. Donovan Mitchell is significantly better, and they gave up, 2 additional picks on top of that to get this done with some, pick swaps in there as well. Ultimately here, Utah selling opened the door for Cleveland, and I think they're definitely in a good situation. Jay Anderson, welcome to the stream. Jay, I think you might have been the one who messaged me actually on Twitter, so a huge thank you to you. If that was you, I'll make sure and respond to you after the stream here. I was busy getting the stream set up as you sent me that, but the Victor sweepstakes, the Jazz could be in it. Yeah, the Jazz are going to be right there in the thick of things for Victor Wembanyama. If you guys are new to the channel, I cover the NBA draft in super detail. Ton of mock drafts, ton of scouting profiles. We already have a Victor Wembanyama scouting profile up on the channel. So if you don't quite know who that is, I really recommend you go through the channel, find that video, and it'll break down why he's arguably the best prospect I've ever watched play basketball. He's very, very dangerous. Frosty says Cavs are in the playoffs. Make sure you guys all hit that subscribe button as well. There's no reason not to. It's completely free to you. And also hit that like button if you're excited for this new NBA season. Isaiah says, I like this trade a lot, man. Now they got a 28-point per game scorer when they already have crazy paid defense. This is big, bro. They do. And this is what I like about them, too. They have so much length that some of Donovan Mitchell's defensive deficiencies don't really hurt them as bad as it does other teams. Now, I still think that Mitchell has to play better defensively. I think he's really got to step up his game. And on that end, because we saw him come in out of Louisville as a good defender. And if you look at his defensive field goal percentage allowed year by year, it's slowly crept up to really bad. He actually came into the league, and it was good his first couple of years. And now, as more offensive load's been given to him, the defensive intensity has really lightened from him. And that's just not acceptable from a star, especially when you're not a true superstar. Donovan Mitchell's not a top 5, top 10 player in the world. He's probably in that top 20 to 25 range, which is really good, but you need to still be able to show out on defense. That's the difference between a guy like Jimmy Butler and him. Donovan Mitchell's not much less talented than Jimmy Butler offensively. I think they're actually probably very similar in terms of their offensive skill set, but Jimmy Butler is a dog defensively. And, I don't love, using the term dog to describe somebody, but that's the best word to describe Jimmy Butler. And I think that if Donovan Mitchell can start playing defensively like we know he's capable of, this means that Cleveland could become a real threat in the East to even maybe win the Eastern Conference. Now they still have to go through Milwaukee and Boston and Philly and Miami. It's not going to be easy for them, but there's a shot here that this team could be representing the Eastern Conference, maybe in the NBA Finals, perhaps in the Eastern Conference Finals. And once you get there, you're an injury away from maybe winning an NBA championship. They've got a ton of talent. You've got 4 all-star caliber players on this team, again, which is the crazy thing. Allen, Garland, Mitchell, Mobley. That is incredible. X Factor says, I think it's a good deal. I'll just miss Agbaji. I know Agbaji was going to be the perfect fill-in piece. I actually talked about my all-rookie teams, and I included Ochai Agbaji on the all-rookie second team. I think he's going to be a very NBA-ready player who is going to help win a lot of games at some point in the NBA. It's just not going to be in Utah, clearly, because this team's really terrible right now. But I thought he was going to be a really nice fit for Cleveland. Ultimately, he'll never have played a game for the Cleveland Cavaliers, which is crazy. TJ says, glad the Knicks did not do a Carmelo Anthony 2.0. That kind of did have some of the same vibe to it. I think that in this case, New York would have given up less of their current talent like they did in the Carmelo deal, where they sent out Gallinari, Felton, and a few other key players on that team. But ultimately, I think that the Knicks, they're kind of in a weird spot right now, not getting Donovan Mitchell as well. Joshua Singh says, that's a haul for Utah, but I thought Mitchell would get you slightly more. This is roughly what I was projecting for Donovan Mitchell in terms of draft pick compensation. I was talking, 4 or 5 picks. Ultimately, that's what they got here in 5 picks if you include the 2 pick swaps. And they got 3 completely unprotected picks, which is significantly more than DeJounte Murray and what he was traded for, which is why I thought the DeJounte Murray trade was so good for Atlanta, because they gave up quite a bit less than what ultimately the Spurs got for DeJounte. So the Hawks, I thought, had a pretty good deal on DeJounte. Lightskin says, what is going on out here? I know, big deal. We see Cleveland bringing in Donovan Mitchell. Again, smash that like button right now if you're excited for Donovan Mitchell to the Cleveland Cavaliers, and make sure to hit that subscribe button for Utility Sports as well. Absolutely crazy that Donovan Mitchell has been traded to the Cleveland Cavaliers. I just cannot believe it. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button for Utility Sports. Gremlin says, thank God now Hoops hype rumor won't be infinite. Mitchell to the Knicks crap daily. Yeah, literally. I see that stuff on Twitter, and it seems like the same recycled content every single day. I'm not going to lie. David Garcia says Jared Allen's a rim protector. He's a pretty darn good one. Oliver, welcome back to the stream. I know you've been in a ton of our live streams before and watched a few of our videos as well, Oliver. So huge shout out to you. Says Utility Sports, who do you think is better right now, the Cavs or Heat, even though Donovan Mitchell hasn't played a game for Cleveland? This is a great question, Oliver. And the Heat took a step back, losing PJ Tucker. They still have Bam, though. They still have Jimmy. I expect Kyle Lowry to have a better year next year than he had this past season. They still have Tyler Hero off the bench. They've got Duncan Robinson, who I think will have a better year next year. Ultimately, I think that's really the tier you find Cleveland in right now. I think they're kind of almost tied, honestly, with Miami. If I had to bet, I'd give a slight edge to Cleveland, just because I think Evan Mobley's going to take a massive step forward this next year. I think he's going to get so much better that he could be the difference maker in a series like that, where at the 4 right now, who do the Heat play? Maybe Martin. Is that who they're going to play there? Probably. So that's where I think the Cavs would have a huge advantage. Bam Adebayo is really special, though. Jimmy Butler always turns up for the playoffs, but so does Donovan Mitchell. So I think it's a very, very close series if those two were to play in 7 games, but I'd probably have the Cavs winning in 6 or 7, honestly, just at this point, just with what they have. Scrap says, can't believe Cavs gave away Sexton. That's crazy. They were able to do that now because of the Karis LeVert addition last year. So I know giving up Sexton's tough. He's had some really good, efficient seasons in his career, including scoring 25 points a game 2 years ago. But at this point, when you're getting Donovan Mitchell, Colin Sexton becomes expendable. Steve says, Utah best record in the NBA in 2021, not throwing it all away for the Wembanyama, or now throwing it all away for the Wembanyama sweepstakes. They are. I thought that they needed to make some tweaks, and they could have really gotten back to a point where they could have been contenders, but they decided to blow everything up instead, which is what I expected once they hired Danny Ainge. Crazy Cavs fan Road says, yo, Cavs win in the finals. They're going to be dangerous this year. I'm not sure if it'll all come together in year 1, but you have to really like this young core as well. Just when you consider the average age on this roster, Okoro's young, Allen's young, Mobley's young, Garland's young, Mitchell's still young. Karis LeVert, about 28 years old. He's not even that old yet either. This team is young, and if they can do a good job finding some depth out there, bring in a few second-round guys, which is what they're going to be tasked with doing, this team could be pretty darn good down the road, as well as right now. Mike K says, as a Cavs fan, this is huge. We have a nice young team that's dangerous and ready to compete right now. Yes, they do. And I just want to point out right now, too, I was still shocked that LeBron James signed his extension with the Lakers before the season. I thought there was no reason for him to do that. He could have signed that same extension one day before free agency started this next year. And I think Cleveland would have been a really attractive destination for him. But ultimately, that did not happen. TZ says, is their backcourt too small with Garland and Mitchell? You could argue that, yes. But at the same time, they have a guy like Okoro who can come in off the bench or maybe in their starting lineup who's going to take probably the best perimeter player for the other team. And then they also have 2 7-footers behind him in Mobley and Allen, who are both really good rim protectors. Mobley is one of the most switchable guys in the league. And I think, going into year 2, 3, 4 of his career, we're going to start seeing that more and more and more. So it's going to be crazy. Apollo, welcome to the stream. You're always in here watching content, so huge shout out to you as well. He says Jazz are stacked with rebuilding assets. Yeah, they've got a ton of draft picks. They got 4 of them things from the Minnesota Timberwolves, including a 5th pick swap. They got 3 of them things here from the Cleveland Cavaliers, including 2 more pick swaps. They've got all of their own draft picks as well, essentially. They're in a great spot right now. Utah's got a lot of draft picks. They've essentially made 2 trades and now find themselves with 7 additional first-round draft picks over the next 8 years, which is crazy. Junior says Cavs got fleeced. I don't think so, just given the fact that their team is young. There's really not that low of a downside here for them. Let's say Mitchell hates it and Cleveland doesn't stay there. after his next contract ends, while you still have Mobley, Allen, and Garland together. So they're going to be pretty good. Chicken McSizzle says, so Cavs go from 2 small guards with no perimeter defense to 2 small guards with no defense. Yeah, but one of the small guards that they had in Colin Sexton wasn't a 3-time All-Star, who averages about 29 points a game in the playoffs. That's what Donovan Mitchell does. And no, I'm not the biggest Donovan Mitchell guy. I think Donovan Mitchell is overrated by a lot of fans for sure. But he is a very good player. Not your average 10K says Mitchell's 6'4", so it's not that small. Mitchell is not 6'4". That might be what he's listed at. That might be with him wearing hunting boots. He's probably about 6'1", 6'2". He's not quite 6'4". Derek says the Jazz got a decent return. If they got a few more picks, it would have been a good trade for the Jazz. I think this is a good trade for the Utah Jazz. I do. I think this is about maximum value here for Donovan Mitchell or close to it. The only team that would have been maybe willing to give up more would have been the New York Knicks. And anytime you can get 3 unprotected firsts, it's something that you at least have to consider. And ultimately, Danny Ainge pulled the trigger on it here. Mac for a better tomorrow says, I think Mitchell will delay Garland's growth. I also think two smalls in the backcourt is not a great investment. I get that. This is not a perfect situation. Again, I'm talking about them being probably roughly around a 3 to 5 seed in the East. It's not like this team's not going to win the NBA Finals this year, probably, if I had to guess. But they're closer in the conversation now, and they traded for a young player. Donovan Mitchell's not 30 years old, right? This isn't like we're going all in right now. This is hey, this player fits our timeline, and he's already shown how really talented he is. Why would we not want him to be a part of our already good young core? And part of this here, too, for Kobe Altman, the GM for the Cleveland Cavaliers, you make this trade, you're guaranteeing yourself basically playoff minutes for Evan Mobley, Darius Garland, Jarrett Allen, which is going to be really important. Those guys get more playoff experience, and ultimately you're in a pretty good spot. Nick A wants to know, who do we give up? Trade is on the screen for you. Again, Utah is trading Donovan Mitchell to the Cleveland Cavaliers for Lauri Markkanen, Ochai Agbaji, Colin Sexton, 3 unprotected first-round picks, and 2 NBA draft pick swaps. So based on what that is, my guess is 2024 pick swap, 2025 unprotected first, 2026 swap, 2027 unprotected first, and a 2029 unprotected first. That's what I would have to guess the deal is here. Chris Heff says LeBron is punching a wall right now. Probably is, honestly. Lamar is so good here, says Caleb's talking about Lamar Stevens. I really like Lamar. I think he's a very nice piece for them. Crazy Cavs fan says, bro, Cavs are definitely making it past the second round and are coming to beat your favorite team. I mean, I hope so. I'm cheering for Cleveland. They've got a little sweet spot in my heart just because, with the way LeBron came back, left for LA, I just like seeing them succeed. .40, always in here watching the channel, says, wow. I know this is a big trade. Let's get some wows in the chat right now, just like what .40 put on the screen. Let's get some wow hype in there. And like I said, yeah, Donovan Mitchell is about 6'1". He is not quite 6'4". Thank you, Fresh Prince, for correcting him from earlier. Mike says, can Garland and Jarrett Allen be an all-star with Donovan? Maybe not, but ultimately when you're building a team, you don't care how many of your players are all-stars. You care how many games you win, and Cleveland's going to win more games this year. That's really the situation. Ace says, very good bargain for Utah. I agree with that. I think, again, this is about maximum value here. Kevin Love does stay in Cleveland. They were actually able to match money with Markkanen, Agbaji, and then Sexton in what is essentially a sign and trade kind of in a way for that. So definitely interesting. LGM says, is the trade done? It is. Full trade, not quite processed by the league office yet, but the deal is agreed upon in terms of everything. There's going to have to be physicals and all that. Let's say Donovan Mitchell has some serious knee injury that we don't know about. This trade would get next. But ultimately, at this point, the trade is agreed upon. So basically, yes, it's done. A says, imagine what a KD trade would be. The one thing here is I think, Kevin Durant's about 6 or 7 years older at least than Donovan Mitchell. Probably even more than that. Probably like 8 or 9 years older than Donovan Mitchell. Let's think. Donovan Mitchell's probably like 25 now. So, yeah, like 8 or 9 years older. People were always overvaluing Kevin Durant's trade value. I think even insiders were. Yes, he's a really good player. He's probably a top 5 player in the world, but he's also about to be 34 years old with multiple knee surgeries and foot surgeries. Like, I don't know. Brady Johnson says, I would have taken RJ over that package. I get that, but I don't know. I think fleshing out your roster, think about it this way. Like, RJ Barrett's not going to be the best player on a good team. RJ Barrett's probably not the best player on a second best player on a good team. Lauri Markkanen and Agbaji Sexton probably aren't either, but this way you have depth. You have guys you're bringing in who can be a part of your long-term plan here. And let's say they do strike gold with Wembanyama. All of these players fit really well next to them. Or let's say they take Scoot Henderson. Well, Scoot Henderson's going to play well with all of these guys too. LGM, definitely not the biggest Knicks fan there. Josh says, dang, Cavs going all in. Yes, they are. Ty Springer says, Ochair is a sick nickname. Yeah, that's definitely what Woj was going for there. Make sure you guys do hit the subscribe button. I'm going to check how many subs we're at right now. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button right this second. Again, a crazy trade. I will be giving my trade grades here in 5 minutes. So in 5 minutes, we're going to get to my actual trade grades, whether it's an A+, A-, maybe it's a C+ for a team. We'll talk about what I think as I'm processing it in my head as we go through this. Paulo says, Cavs got fleeced, but only by a little. I get what you're saying. Julian says he's a star, not a superstar. I agree with that as well. I've never said he was a superstar. I think he's about a top 20 to 25 player. But that's a really good player to add to an already good young core. Luca out says Boyan to the Knicks. I could see that as a possibility. Banjito says Sexton, Agbaji, Kessler might be a good young core. Don't forget to throw in there as well Markkanen. You have, and also this team is in a weird spot, but they're going to be able to make some more trades on top of this with Boyan Bogdanovic and Mike Conley. So don't act like this is the final product we're going to see here from Utah, but it's definitely an interesting start to the rebuild here for the Utah Jazz. One that I think is a pretty good start. Crazy Cavs fan says Cavs don't need a megastar. We already have one of those. I think he's probably talking here about Evan Mobley probably becoming a megastar. And I could see him becoming close to that. Texas Sports, thank you so much for sending the super sticker. Really appreciate you. You're the man. He always watches the videos. And the thing I love about Texas Sports is him and I disagree on stuff. We've gone back and forth in the comment section before. And I love it because we're able to talk about it in a way that we can disagree and really actually talk about basketball, which is what I love. But and neither of us have to change our opinion, but we defend what we believe in. I think it's really a lot of fun. So huge shout out to you, Texas Sports, again. We're going to go ahead and talk about the trade here in just a second. I'm going to respond to one of these here quick. Michael Orlando, thank you for the $5. He says, Knicks day garbage to match their fan base. Hey, whoa, I'm bing bonging air. That's awesome, Michael. Thank you so much for the $5. Really appreciate you. I know you've been watching the channel for quite some time, so definitely a huge appreciation from me to you. Crypto Miguel says, what does pick swap mean? So what that means here is that, let's say they have a pick swap in the year 2025. If somehow Cleveland has a worse record and gets a better draft pick than the Utah Jazz, the Utah could switch picks. Basically, Utah has the choice between the higher pick in that year is all a pick swap is. Katie Burner says that is absolutely crazy. The Cavs are crazy for this. They're so good now. Cavs are definitely very, very dangerous. 313 Lock says Ivy winning rookie of the year. I hope so. Let's get some Jaden Ivey hype. So let's get to my trade grades here. We're going to go ahead and hit the trade grades right now. Make sure you guys are staying in tune for this because I'm very excited. What I think here is I'm going to go ahead and get it in a banner here for you guys too, so you can actually read them on screen. I think I'm going to start with the Cleveland Cavaliers here. I'm going to give them this grade. And for the Utah Jazz, I'm going to give them probably this grade, I think. Let's go ahead and put it on screen now for you. Here are my trade grades. I have the Cleveland Cavaliers at an A- and the Utah Jazz at a B+. And you're going to say, whoa, B+, how come? Why do you think that's going to be a B+ for the Utah Jazz? I thought you said that this is probably close to the maximum value they could get. And I do think that they are in a position where they did get the maximum value. So why would they be a B+? Well, one, this team is trying to lose. They want to have as good of a shot at the number 1 overall pick this year for Victor Wembanyama as possible. And adding Lauri Markkanen, I think doesn't help you in this. I think he's going to make you better than you want to be. I think Ochai Agbaji is going to help you win. And I think Colin Sexton is going to help you win a little bit as well. So it's kind of counterintuitive to me because you're trying to lose games. And I felt like, hey, maybe if New York was offering 4 or 5 first-round picks, albeit maybe not all unprotected, that maybe would have been a better way for them to guarantee a chance at a better draft pick this year. Let's say they have the 4th best odds instead of the 3rd best odds. You're losing out on about a 3% difference between getting Wembanyama and not. Now, it's only 3%. Should I be really changing my trade grade that much for this? Maybe not. Maybe let me rework this. I think I'm talking myself out of it. Let me change this. I'm gonna change this to this because the more I talk through it, the less I believe myself. So I'm gonna give the Jazz an A. Realistically, I think that with Braitha, thank you for the $2, says check out Garland and Mitchell's tweets. Let's go ahead and pull that up right now. We will go ahead and do that. Braitha, again, thank you for the $2. Let's go ahead over here. Shout out to Atlanta Analyst, by the way. I don't know if he's even watching right now, but shout out to him. Really nice guy. So really appreciate everything he has done. And Donovan Mitchell, let's see what is going on with his tweets as of late. Spida Mitchell, clicking into his Twitter right now. And here we go. 1.2 million followers. I'm sure that's going to grow. 10 and Spida, says Darius Garland, and Donovan Mitchell puts the exclamation points on top of that. So obviously some hype for sure. Donovan Mitchell is a New York Mets fan, so I thought maybe he would have preferred going to the New York Knicks. But clearly he seems somewhat happy. Also, shout out to this meme here in the upper right. That's a very, very funny and famous meme. But yeah, so Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, definitely happy to be playing together. Now let's go back to my trade grades. Again, I reworked this. I'm going to give the Jazz an A. Partially in my head as well. One thing I like is that they do have some depth now in Markkanen, Agbaji, and Sexton, where if maybe they do get lucky and it's, maybe it only hurts them 3% chance or something, they could be in a spot where they still land the 1st or 2nd overall pick this year. And I mean, this draft is deep. You got Dariq Whitehead, Nick Smith Jr., and there's a lot of talent in here. Duke's got 2 big men, Kyle Filipowski being one of them, and Derek Lively as well. There's a lot of talent in this draft that even if they don't get a top 2 pick, they're okay, especially with how many future draft picks they have. A for average, says ITK. Now, I think this is good. I do think it's a good trade for both teams, and I think the Jazz here at this point is going to be in a very good spot overall, just because when you consider what is going on for Utah, they're at least going in a direction. And I think had they kept Donovan Mitchell this year, and they would have been not very good. I don't know. If they kept Donovan Mitchell, I think he would have lost some of his trade value because teams would have realized, hey, we can't really win with this guy if he's just our best player, period. So that's my thought. Calvin Cambridge says Scoot Henderson will be better than Mitchell eventually. I could probably see that being a possibility. Sam Good says their defensive backcourt just took a hit. Not too much of one. I think that Colin Sexton's an overrated defender. PJ Cruz, welcome to the stream. He's always watching the channel, says hashtag Detroit basketball. PJ, if you haven't checked out the Pistons season preview on the channel, I highly recommend it. I think it's probably one of the best videos I have on the entire channel. Chris Romero saying, LeBron, come home. Now let's talk about it from Cleveland's perspective. Let's go back to their A- grade that I gave them. The reason why I give them an A- and not higher is because there is the risk that Donovan Mitchell doesn't like it in Cleveland. He could leave in a few years. And Cavs fans, I'm sorry that I'm talking about it. You guys hear this all the time that Cleveland's not a destination. If it wasn't for LeBron, this team, this, that, whatever. I don't want to be that form of the media that is just super critical and hates on the Cavaliers for no reason. But the reality here is that you probably wouldn't sign a guy as good as Donovan Mitchell. And the realistic possible outcome as well is that they could, at this point have to run the risk of maybe losing Mitchell in free agency. That's the only thing I don't like. Texas Sports says Utah can repackage Markkanen with Bojan Clarkson and Conley. Mavs should go for Bojan. I would love the Mavs getting Bojan Bogdanovic for the offensive side of the ball, but defensively, I don't know. I think Christian Wood's just a better fit than Bojan would be, specifically because Wood's a lot more athletic. And in terms of repackaging, guys, this is part of why I was a little more critical at first, but why I've kind of altered the Jazz's trade grade. Yes, they could repackage them, but they're going to have to probably keep them for a little while. I really would have liked to see them trade Markkanen in like a 3-team deal here, where they already had something planned for where Markkanen was going to end up. They did not do that, though. Like, let's say, they could have done something like Markkanen and Bojan to the Lakers. They get Russell Westbrook back and maybe a first rounder or two in that. That would have been definitely a good situation. Jan Brown says Utility Sports with the breaking news. Good looking out. I'm trying for you guys. Obviously, there's been a little bit less news lately, a little bit less content coming out, but don't worry. We're going to stay in the whole swing of things once the year gets going again, too, especially with some of the stuff in the NBA. I still have some big plans as well. Tylo says Conley would be great for the Mavs. Actually, I do not want Mike Conley. I'm a Mavericks fan myself. Tylo, I get the idea there. Like, I do think they need another ball handler. I would prefer Clarkson off the bench than Conley just because of their salaries, and I think Conley's really lost a step. Bam says, my Miami Heat took a major L. Sort of. I know that they wanted Donovan Mitchell. They just didn't have the firepower to offer this. Miami, famously never has their draft picks, so they didn't really have a shot in the sweepstakes. The 911B says, no one liked the Cavs because of how unbelievably garbage the front office was. They've proven that they're actually competent now. They are more competent for sure. Kobe Altman's doing a great job there. With the Garland selection, the Evan Mobley pick, he killed it. They're in a great spot. They really are. Texas Sports says, good point. Yeah, I mean, and what you said too is true. Like, they can repackage him. The one thing with that is, are they going to not play him? And that's the one thing I hate too. I hope it's not like OKC 2.0 where they just don't play any of their players trying to lose. Like, that would just really, really be annoying to me. Adam wants to know, did I like the trade? I do like the trade. And I want to know, did you guys like the video? Because if not, you guys got to go and do that right now. Like LGM saying, hit the like. My goodness, give this man some love. Let's go ahead, smash the like button. I literally dropped what I was doing, ran to my setup. I was like, I gotta go record right now. I was in the middle of something, working really hard on something, and all of a sudden, I saw a tweet from Adrian Wojnarowski, and I said, oh my goodness, I gotta go stream right now for everyone who's subscribed. So make sure to go hit that subscribe button right now. Adrian says, I wonder if they're going to trade Conley. I think they will. The question is of when and to where. I think the Lakers are one of those teams that still makes sense. Jay has said they should try and develop Mike Conley since he has tons of potential. The guy who is pretty far into his career. I'm not sure how much potential he has left on tap. Jared says this feels like a Jordan Clarkson retool. There's going to be some building around Jordan Clarkson there for sure. Colin says, my man Sam Presti is a trendsetter. Yes, he is. The biggest question is, will it ever win? And you could argue that a Mr. Hinkie out in Philadelphia is maybe the real trendsetter here. He was kind of doing this before everybody else was. We'll see if it really moves the needle or not, though. I remember Hinkie, Mr. Sam Hinkie himself, did draft Joel Embiid. Mary Ortiz says, I know it was so random. I freaked out. I know it just came out of nowhere. It's kind of a bummer because I was going to record a video on how I thought Cleveland could maybe be a sleeper team as well as Toronto. And I thought the Knicks were, probably the top 3 teams. Really, though, Cleveland was the team that was on my mind just because the more I thought about it, I was like, this team's kind of young. I could see them making a sneaky move like this. And they did it. D. Johnson says, Cavs front office was not trash. It was the fact that we had to let our young players get better. Front office staff and players are now both good. Cavs going to the 3rd round. So he's predicting Eastern Conference Finals for Cleveland. That's definitely a bold take. Even if they get to round 2, that's a huge win for Cleveland. They have not been to the 2nd round of the playoffs since before LeBron James got drafted into the NBA without LeBron. If LeBron's on their roster, they're not getting to the 2nd round of the playoffs. That's been true my entire lifetime. So getting to the 2nd round of the playoffs would be really good, even if they don't get further than that. PG says, also, not going to lie, do Jazz really look that bad? Their team at least has starting level players right now. I don't think so because I don't think Walker Kessler's a starter right now. I think Ochai Agbaji's a really low-level starter right now just because he's a rookie. I think that Bojan Bogdanovic and Mike Conley, you have to scratch those two. Those guys are not going to be there. They're going to get traded relatively soon. Markkanen's okay. Like, the team's going to be a bunch of G Leaguers in 3 months. So by the time we get to Christmas, I promise that they're not going to have their guys. That's for sure. Also, we got some new 2K news coming out. You guys want me to show that? I definitely could. Maybe it's worth showing. I'm not sure, though. Let me take a look. You guys want to watch the new 2K trailer that came out for my career? We could definitely take a look at it. G Money says THT about to break out. I mean, yeah, like, he's going to have to. Otherwise, his NBA career is going to be rather short. So, Aragon says concerns about Cleveland's small backcourt between Garland and Mitchell. Very little concern there. I think that the fact that they have such a big front court with Mobley and Allen is just going to cover some of that up. Lloyd wants to know, what did Utah get? Utah got 3 first-round picks. My guesses are 2024, or 2025, 2027, 2029. Picks 2 of them, which I'm predicting would be 2024 and 2026. No confirmation on that quite yet. They also got Ochai Agbaji. They got Lauri Markkanen. And they also got Colin Sexton, who signed a new 4-year, $82 million deal, or $72 million, $72 million deal with them. Calvin Cambridge with the trust the process for Mr. Hinkie himself. I like that. And yes, this is the package that Utah got here. Sexton, Ochai, Lauri, 3 unprotected first, 2 bops. John Jones, welcome to the stream, says, this proves beyond a shadow of the doubt that the executives James Dolan put in place to oversee operations are clearly overrated. I mean, it's the Knicks. What do you really expect? Jards, who is your top 6 in the East? Number 1's Milwaukee. Number 2 is Philly. Number 3 is Boston. Number 4, 2 and 3 are very close there, so don't like freak out about that. Number 4 is probably Cleveland. Number 5 is Miami. Number 6 is Toronto. And I think that those 6 are kind of locked in terms of being the top 6. Maybe not in that order, but I think those are going to be the best 6 teams in the East. And I think probably convincingly. Santiago Contreras says, is Braun coming back? No, he's not. He signed an extension, actually, with the Los Angeles Lakers. WVC clearly not too happy with the news. Find You says, how long do you think the rebuild will take for the Utah Jazz? Probably at least 4 or 5 years. So Jazz fans, buckle up for some losing, because you guys aren't going to be good for half a decade at least, probably. Lucid says, Jazz just robbed all of the NBA. I don't really know about that. I mean, if the Cavaliers are good, that pick's going to be like 20. Like, okay. No bench. That is a concern for mine. But I think, one of the things here is you guys are underrating Chetty Osman. You guys are underrating Lamar Stevens. You're underrating Isaac Okoro a little bit. I'm not a big Okoro fan anymore, but he can play a little. Kevin Love, who was 2nd and 6th man of the year, he's still there. And they also have Dean Wade. It's not like their bench is brutal. It's just, and they have Ricky Rubio off the bench once he's healthy. Their bench isn't great, but it's not bad. Like, it's not terrible. Concerned Citizen says, Jazz lottery team, they're rebuilding. Oh, so that's fine. Yeah, they will. Ryan, welcome to the stream. Glad to have you in here. We've got to connect again over on Facebook. But he says, wow, they finally traded Donovan. They did, and they landed on the Cleveland Cavaliers offer. So definitely crazy. No Fairy Tale says, Markkanen is better than okay. He's a beast. Sexton to Jazz came up. I mean, okay. Lauri Markkanen is not a beast. He's not a top 100 player in the NBA. But he's good. He's just not a beast. Brian K says, Jared Butler, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and Drew Zane getting minutes now. Yeah, those 3 guys are going to get a lot of run this year, which is why they're going to struggle. Light Skin Disgrace says, let's do a reaction to it. I think that, again, what I said here was Cavaliers getting A-, Utah Jazz getting A. I think the Jazz nearly maximized their value. The only thing I would have liked more is if they would have made this a 3-team deal and sent Markkanen somewhere right away for draft compensation. And I think for Cleveland here, you get a really good player with an already really good young core. I really think this is as close to a win-win trade as you can kind of get in the NBA. Both teams kind of got what they wanted. It's crazy how the Jazz fans who went from saying Donovan Mitchell is nearly a top 10 player in the world to saying, oh, we just fleeced the entire NBA. I don't quite understand that, how both of those things can be true. Maybe they're being facetious both ways a little. Brian K says, you're underrating Sexton. Getting rid of him along with that, all that might be a mistake. It's super risky, I think. No, I'm not underrating Colin Sexton. Colin Sexton puts up numbers. A lot of fans are going to look at his stat line and think he's really good. He's just not nearly in the same stratosphere as Donovan Mitchell. I'm sorry, it's just not the case. I think that he's a solid player. I think he could be a really, really good bench scorer. And other than that, I don't really know. Traded our future and our picks. ISO, here's the thing. This past year was the worst that Cleveland will probably be in the next 3-4 years. Just looking at the fact that, Mobley's going to get better, Garland's going to improve a bit, Allen's going to improve a bit. So like you're picking anywhere from 15 to 25, mostly. Like those picks aren't going to really mean that much to you. Shaw says no Nets in your top 6. Oh, okay. I forgot about the Brooklyn Nets. There's still a lot of drama there. Thank you actually for pointing them out. I forgot about Brooklyn. Just because last year they were such a non-factor. And people freaked out when I said Boston would beat them in 5. I've made a community post actually about it, making fun of the people who told me I was stupid. Because I said, wow, look at that. I really overrated the Brooklyn Nets, giving them 1 win against the Boston Celtics. But I mean, yeah, they're maybe right in there. I guess the top 7's really good. I could see the Nets making a top 6, but like Kyrie Irving's going to have to play, 70 games? Okay, we'll see if that happens. Kevin Durant's going to miss like 20 games again this year at least. And Ben Simmons, who was a super athletic player, just had back surgery. So I know that Dwight Howard went from being a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year to having back surgery to being on veteran minimums the rest of his career. So not saying that that's what's going to happen with Simmons, but I mean, I don't know. Clues, Brown would trade our whole team again. I'm good with Mitchell. Yeah, Mitchell's going to work pretty good there, I think. Luis Diaz wants to know, what about Chicago? I think the Bulls are probably going to be a 7 or 8 seed. Maybe a 9 seed. Actually, yeah, because I think the Atlanta Hawks are better than Chicago. Heck, Chicago might miss the playoffs. I think Chicago is going to miss the postseason, to be honest with you. But you never really know. Brian K says, okay, I already read this one. DB the GOAT says, don't forget Karis LeVert off the bench. Yeah, exactly. I didn't even mention Karis. Yeah, I think people are freaking out about the Cavs depth. I think the Cavs are actually decent. Unknown says, my Cavs about to be top 4. I think they'll be right around in that situation. Lucid said 13 picks and solid players. Jazz will be good. Not anytime soon. They're not going to be. That's for sure. I can promise you when we're doing my 2025 first round mock drafts, I'll probably have them in the top 10 still. So that kind of proves the point that they're not going to be good for a long time. Dilsifer says, Ainge isn't done yet either. Likely Conley and Bogdanovich are next. Yeah, I think so as well. Let's see. Tinkerbacher says, you're telling me you can name 100 players better than Laurie. Yeah, think about, there's 30 teams in the NBA, which means that if each team has 3 players better than Lauri Markkanen, there's already 90 guys. For example, let's go through the Warriors, because I'll show examples that teams have more than 3 guys. Who is Lauri Markkanen better than here in Golden State? Is he better than Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Jordan Poole? That's 4. Could probably argue that Jonathan Kuminga is going to be better this next year than Lauri Markkanen. Could argue that Moses Moody will likely be better down the road. I mean, like, yes, that's one team, but let's look at the Dallas Mavericks. Christian Wood's better. You've got Dorian Finney-Smith is significantly better than Lauri Markkanen. You've got Luka Doncic for sure is better. And then THJ is kind of right in the same area as Lauri Markkanen. There's a lot of players that are better than Lauri Markkanen in the NBA. Yes, I could name 100 players. Last year I did my top 100 in the NBA. I will do it again this year, and Lauri Markkanen will not be on that list. I promise you. Neil M wants to know, hey, do you do fantasy content? We do for the NFL. Let me know. Do you guys want fantasy basketball content? I will definitely post some if you want some. It's definitely a different way to look at basketball, and one that I like a little bit less than talking about normal hoops, but I post what I want. So if I want to post it, I'll post it. Adrian says the city of Cleveland with 2 huge trades this year. What are the Guardians going to pull off? Well, they might win the AL Central. They're in a tight race right now with the Minnesota Twins, but they could get it done. We'll see. Concerned Citizen says, at Utility Sports, Jazz have 18 players now. Who do you think goes? Let's look at the Jazz current roster, because there are definitely some guys that they could shave off of this team. There's a lot of players here that, quite frankly, don't really make an impact. Like Rudy Gay probably will get bought out. And the other thing is they'll probably just trade Conley and Bogdanovich, but they'll probably have to take in some salaries to do that. I mean, Like, I thought Xavier Sneed played pretty well. I think he's on a two-way now. I think he played really well in the summer league, actually. I mean, Stanley Johnson they could release. Like, Udoka Azubuike, like, I could see him going as well. There's guys on this roster. Like, realistically, it's like draw a straw and cut whichever one of them you want. A lot of these guys aren't going to matter in the NBA. So that's kind of my thought. Sean McCabe wants to know what's next for Bogdanovich, Conley, and Gay. Gay's just going to get traded for wherever any of these guys are going. Like, he's going to be like a throw-in in that. No one wants Rudy Gay right now. But Bojan Bogdanovich, I think the Lakers are definitely a destination that could make some sense. I wouldn't rule out Miami in this for Bojan because they could really use a new four. Bojan Bogdanovich would be a pretty good fit for them for that, actually. Just given the fact that they lost PJ Tucker, I think Bojan's offense could really help this team. He's a pretty solid, post-up player if you have a mismatch. He's also obviously a very lethal shooter, so he could definitely get the job done. Conley, I mean, the Lakers are the team that makes the most sense for him, honestly. Andrew says, glad the Knicks didn't buckle. Cleveland got shafted by Utah. I disagree. I think that they gave up a lot, but I don't think that they got terribly screwed. Harsh Pop says, I can 100% see the Cavs in a top 5 seed situation. Only problem is I think they need one more guy that can come off the bench and put up numbers. I think you're forgetting about Karis LeVert there, Harsh. I think LeVert's the guy who comes off the bench and gets numbers. Ricky Rubio probably in December or so will come back from injury and be a nice backup point guard for them. And then, looking in the forward situation, they'd probably have Lamar Stevens, Kevin Love off the bench. I mean, I think they're good. They could probably just use a little bit more size. Cavs in 7 with some let's go hype in the chat. That's awesome. I'm sure you're super excited. Luis Diaz is not super happy with me saying Chicago. No love for the Bulls. I mean, like, realistically, they're just not better than Toronto. They're not better than Cleveland now. They're not better than Brooklyn if everything goes right in Brooklyn. Now, if Brooklyn like falls apart, they would make it in over Brooklyn. But I'd have to predict something to happen there. Suzuki wants to know who was all given up. The Cavs gave up Ochai Agbaji, Lauri Markkanen, and also Colin Sexton with 3 first-round picks and 2 pick swaps for the Golden Boy, Donovan Mitchell. Jared Jensen says Victor to Utah, definitely a real possibility now. We're going to have to be watching where the Utah Jazz are picking next year. Mwambi says Atlanta Hawks are going to be good too. Yes, they are. They're going to be right in the conversation. Cody says the Hawks put the Cavs out last year. Yeah, that Cavs team, though, didn't have Donovan Mitchell. And they also had Jarrett Allen back for like the first game in like a month or something. He just clearly wasn't himself that matchup. So the Mwambi says Hawks have a better backcourt than Cleveland still with Trae Young. By the way, if you're a Hawks fan, Trae Young is spelled Trae. And DeJounte Murray is Murray, just so you know. Yes, the Hawks have the better backcourt probably, but the Cavaliers have the much better front court. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. Light Skin Disgrace says, Sheldon, take that back. No, I think that this is pretty fair about Chicago. I get that people aren't going to be happy with that, with the Chicago Bulls take, but like DeMar's a year older. Yes, he played great last year. Will he play that well again? Maybe. I could see it, but Nikola Vucevic, I mean, contract year, I don't know. I think Nikola Vucevic is really overrated. I know I'm getting a lot of hate right now for the Chicago take. Jards, I'm sorry about that as well. Ultimately, with the Chicago thing here, I just think that ultimately, when you're looking at the East, like they're just not better than Milwaukee. They're not better than Boston. They're not better than Philly. They're not better than Miami. They're not better than Cleveland. They're not better than Brooklyn in terms of talent. They're not better than Toronto. Not even close to being better than Toronto. And then you get into a fight with the Atlanta Hawks for probably the 8th seed. Like, probably one of Atlanta or Chicago has to miss the playoffs, and I think Atlanta is better than Chicago. So I'm sorry, but that's the my thought here. Brian says Lauri's in that 110 to 120 range. Yeah, probably. And he's probably 110 to 140-ish, I would say, somewhere in that range. Once you get to like 120, though, you're starting to really pick hairs on like oh, why do I prefer this guy? Like versatility, this kind of stuff. So, and Wiggins. Yeah, I didn't even mention Andrew. Yeah, no, Lauri Markkanen wouldn't even start for the Golden State Warriors. And yeah, they just won the championship. So, that's not a fair team to point out and stream, but like if they have 5 or 6 guys better, then realistically, some of these other teams like the Magic who maybe don't have 3 guys, like they kind of get compensated by some of these other better teams. So that's kind of why. Ryan says, yeah, Lauri's not top 100. That's facts. Shout out to Ryan again. Let's keep working down. Prime Tube says Jimmy Butler's still the GOAT. I mean, he puts the team on his back come playoff time. So, I don't want to Ty wants to know what seed are the Utah Jazz? 15 out of 15. They're going to finish last. The only team that I think could really compete with them for that last seed is maybe the Houston Rockets, just because of how young they are, and also maybe the Oklahoma City Thunder. But I think the Thunder are a little bit more talented than some of these teams. Shane says I can see Bogdanovich in Toronto as well. That's not a bad point out, Shane. Thank you for that. I really actually do appreciate that, because it's funny too because I wasn't really prepared for this today as much. Obviously, I know Donovan Mitchell. I know the landscape of the league enough to just hop on and talk. But I wasn't like prepping Bojan Bogdanovic trades just randomly on a Thursday afternoon, because I was like, oh, today's the day Donovan Mitchell gets traded. No, it just kind of happens. Ryan says, as a Raptors fan, I'd take Bogdanovic. Yeah, definitely would. Let's keep going. Anthony says Cleveland looks good right now. Yes, definitely does. Dean Wade's there as well. I like Dean Wade. People are telling me the Hawks are going to get smoked by the Game Changers. Telling me the Hawks will get smoked by the Bulls. Obviously, a little bit of some nerves. Meep, welcome to the stream, Meep. Let's get some Meep hype in the chat. Everyone comment right now. Let's get some Meep hype. I want to see all the Meeps in the chat right now. Let's get some Meep in there. I'll explain why someday, why we get the Meep hype in there. But let's get some Meep hype in the chat right now. Everyone go ahead and comment Meep, just like how I typed it on the screen. That way we can get some hype in here for Miss Meep right here. Brian K says, I would assume New and Patrick Williams could break out. I think Dosunmu is kind of what we saw. I don't think he's going to get that much better. But Patrick Williams, I think, could take a big step forward. So that's fair, Brian. That's fair. If Chicago does make it to the playoffs, I think Patrick Williams would have a pretty big impact in that. Here's one other thing for all the viewers right now. I don't think Chicago is bad. I don't think Chicago is like a terrible team. I think that they've got 2 really good scorers. I think they've got some other nice pieces around it. I think Alex Caruso is very good. I think he was a phenomenal signing by them. I think that their front office has done a relatively good job. I think the Vucevic trade was brutal. But other than that, I think that they're in a really good situation. And outside of the Vucevic trade, I think they've done a lot of good things. The only issue is the East is just really good right now. There's like 9 or 10 very good teams in the Eastern Conference. So, like, to me, that's kind of the issue there. Symbian says, looks like I'm picking 2 Cavs on my fantasy league. Jarrett Allen's definitely a good fantasy player to pick up. He grabs a lot of rebounds and gets some block shots. Brady says this is not about just this year. The Cavs have the new big 3. They have a big 4. That's the fun part about this team. And it's not about just this season. Jarrell says Hawks aren't beating the Cavs in a series. I don't think so either. I wasn't talking about Hawks beating Cleveland, though. I was talking about the Hawks probably beating Chicago in a series, which is a big difference. Ryan says some people sleeping heavy on the Raptors. Yes, they are. Completely agree with that. Chad says Raptors making a top 3 push this season. Stop sleeping. I mean, I'm not like sleeping. The one thing too is it's not just all about the regular season. Nick Nurse is one of the best coaches in the league. The one thing I'm concerned about is some of their depth. They have Malachi Flynn, who I think is a good backup guard. They have Otto Porter Jr., who I think is a good backup wing. But other than that, they're still a little thin. We'll see what Koloko can give them. If Koloko plays well, it kind of fills out some of their rotation a little bit. But again, they're going to be playing 8 or 9 guys all year, whereas some teams can have the luxury of playing 10. And I know that doesn't sound like a big difference, but throughout 82 games, it is, especially when there's going to be injuries. Trey Play says Bulls better than the Cavs. That's a take. I don't agree with that. Ryan Hillier says Toronto is going to be one of the best defensive teams in the whole league. Yes, they will be. That is Nick Nurse's DNA. He's one of the best coaches. I think Nick Nurse is probably the best coach in the NBA. Brady here says Spida, Garland, Mobley, and Allen. Definitely a very good combination. Again, let's get some of that meat pipe in the chat. If you guys haven't subscribed yet either, make sure to do that right now. We are getting a lot of the meat pipe in here. I love that. I'm going to go ahead and show some of these. Calvin, Ty, Robbie, thank you guys also. He says, the heck is a meep. That's funny. Ryan says meep. Jay Anderson with the W for meep. I love that. Ty again with some more hype in there. That's awesome. Thank you guys all for getting some hype in there. That's sweet. Stephen Goodell here. Let's get on with the stream. Says, after 3 years of hearing that the Cavs shouldn't start 2 6'1" guards that like the ball in their hands, they traded their efficient scoring guard who is a better defender for another 6'1" guard. Yeah, but the 6'1" guard that they got is I don't know, a 3-time All-Star who averages 29 points a game in the playoffs. Like, again, I'm not the biggest Donovan Mitchell fan. I think he's been overrated. I clearly thought that Rudy Gobert was the best player on the Utah Jazz the last 4 years, but let's not act like Donovan Mitchell isn't very good. He's a top 20 to 25 player in the entire world. That means if every team was drafting, let's say we're doing a fantasy draft, he would go in the first round. Like, that's pretty impressive to get that. Ty Springer says, what about Dalen Terry? I like Dalen Terry too. He's a good addition, but I don't know if Dalen Terry, his rookie year, is going to move the needle that much. We'll see. I still think that Chicago has to make a trade involving Kobe White. Steven says, who is more ball dominant and $12 million more expensive than what Cullen wanted? I mean, yes, but you also have to look at it through the lens that Colin Sexton just had a major knee surgery. It probably won't be the same player the first few years and isn't a 3-time All-Star. Like, keep sleeping on the Hawks, says Mwambu. I'm not sleeping on the Hawks. I think the Hawks are good. I think, Trae Young's one of the best offensive players in the league. I think they're a pretty good team. That random kid says, got Mitchell, Jazz screwed up. I mean, I don't think the Jazz screwed up. I think the Jazz are pretty fine. Jay Anderson says, Jazz, Thunder, Knicks have higher chances of getting him. If we're talking about Wembanyama, I don't think the Knicks are going to be in the Wembanyama sweepstakes this year unless somehow the lottery really plays them well. Brady says, why do we think Raptors are that good? It's a star league. Who has taken their last shot come crunch time? Well, they're good because they had 5 guys who are capable of averaging 18 points a game. 4 guys with Scotty Barnes. I mean, like, think about it. They have Scotty Barnes, who's going to become a star, Brady. They have Pascal Siakam, who's really good. Just made an All-NBA team, actually, which if Paul George and Kawhi Leonard were healthy this year, he wouldn't have, but he did. He made it. So there's that. Fred VanVleet's an all-star level player. They also have Gary Trent Jr., who I really like as a two-way guard. And then OG Anunoby, I think if he stays healthy, that's really been the big bugaboo for him. If he can stay healthy, he's going to be a problem. Neil wants to know my prediction for Mobley stats for the season, including defensive stats. Okay. I think he's going to average about 17 points a game, which you might be saying, oh, that's not really much of an improvement from where he was last year. Yeah, they have Donovan Mitchell now, so he's going to score. So there's going to be a little bit less scoring for everybody else, but I think, Mobley gets a little bit better still, so he's still going to score the ball. And the way he plays offensively is not, like, dependent on having the basketball. Probably 8 or 9 rebounds a game. Him and Jared Allen are going to share a lot of the rebound numbers. Probably 3-ish assists a game, 2.5 to 3 assists a game, which it's what it is. Probably about 54% from the field, 34% from 3, and defensively probably a steal a game and 1.5 to 2 blocks a game, which is elite numbers. Game Changer says good takes. Thank you for that, Game Changer. Jonah Ramirez says Bojan, Clarkson, and Conley for Tim Hardaway Jr., Bertans, Green, Powell, and a 2025 first. As a Mavs fan, no thank you. I do not want to be giving up a draft pick for that. I do not want to be giving up Tim Hardaway Jr. for that. No, I just don't want that. That's funny. The Steven guy is not believing. My boy, this isn't a good trade. They traded away 3 good players and 3 draft picks for a slightly better. He's not slightly better. Like that's just, you're being ridiculous here, Steven. He's not slightly better. He is significantly better than Colin Sexton. I don't care what Colin Sexton did 2 years ago when he averaged 25 points a game and shot about 50% from the field. Yes, I know that sounds great. The Cavs won like 18 games that year. Okay, I don't care. Donovan Mitchell is significantly better than Colin Sexton, and we will see it this year when Utah is probably the worst team in the Western Conference or the second worst team in the Western Conference. Okay, like there's a significant gap between the two players, and it's not even close. Grillbuster says Kevin Love will be off the books soon, so who cares about Gilbert's money? Yeah, right. We don't need to worry about Dan Gilbert having to pay money. He's rich. Unlimited Range gave his own grades. Grade for the Cavs, A. Grade for Jazz, B to B+. I think he's a little low on the Jazz, just like how I was at first. Ryan says the ability Sheldon has to read every comment and rapid fire good takes is second to none. Thank you, Ryan, for that. Really appreciate you again being in here. It's awesome having you in here, Ryan. Let's definitely stay in touch. Sella says exactly I wanted Igbaji. I think losing Igbaji hurts. I think that's the one that he was like the nice connector piece that this team was missing last year. So to see him go, I mean, it hurts. Robbie, Calican says, I'm in Utah. Now we have a hood ball boy. Yeah, this is definitely a tough situation here for Utah. They're going to be pretty bad this year. Jose Mato says, first round exit, Cavs, no defense. Wow. Jose, tell me that you haven't watched Evan Mobley play basketball. Tell me that you haven't watched Jarrett Allen play basketball. Tell me you haven't watched, Dean Wade or Lamar Stevens play basketball. Yes, they have two guys who aren't great defenders because of their size in Garland and Mitchell. Okay? You also want to tell me that Jordan Poole and Steph Curry are really great defenders while they were playing 30 minutes a game each for the Warriors? Do you want to tell me those two guys are great individual defenders? They're not. They're not. You can win with smaller guards if you have the right team. And Cleveland, maybe they don't win a championship, but they're definitely not terrible. That's for sure. Man. Grillbuster says, who knows how Sexton will look after the injury? Glad Markkanen is gone, though. I mean, they just improved. They are a lot better today than they were yesterday. That is a seriously obvious, like it's not even a take from me. ITK says Mitchell is probably the 10th best guard in the league. Yeah, think of 10th best guard in general is a really good place to be. There's 30 teams, which means there's 60 starting guards. He's in the top 15% of starting guards. You see how important that is? That's pretty significant, being the 10th best guard in the league. I didn't think today that I was going to have to be defending Donovan Mitchell so hard. I don't like Donovan Mitchell. That's the issue. I think Donovan Mitchell is overrated by a lot of people. But the moment he gets traded, everyone wants to say, oh, the team that gave up all the picks lost the trade, overpaid, this, that. If the Cavaliers are good, which they probably will be, those picks are in the 20s. Okay? Think about that. Walker Kessler just went first overall, I think, to Minnesota before getting traded to Utah. Would you trade 3 Walker Kesslers for Donovan Mitchell? Yes, you would in a heartbeat. You wouldn't even think twice about it. And this is potentially what that package could become. Now, is there a little bit of a risk? Maybe. But Cleveland's one of those teams that's young, and you would think that they're a little bit more risk averse than most of the other teams in the league right now. Dilsifer says 25 points per game on a bad team is worse than 15 points per game on a good team. It is a lot of the time. Not always. Devin Booker's a case of that, but mostly. Mark says Cavs just upgraded their starting lineup big time. Where do we rank their starting 5 in the East? Their starting 5 is very significantly highly rated. They need to be it's hard because Brooklyn's still serious and Toronto and Milwaukee, but they're right in the thick of things. They're a top 5 starting lineup in the East for sure. Chris says Cavs were on track for top 4 seed until injuries. They realistically lose one player from last year who was a role player for a superstar while keeping young core. I don't think they were necessarily going to be a top 4 seed until injuries. Every team has injuries. The Bulls were technically going to be the 1 seed until injuries. Yes and no, Chris, but I agree with you that they didn't get a superstar, but they added an all-star while keeping their young core. It's a win. It's a win. Anthony says, so you think Mitchell makes the Cavs better than the Hawks with Murray? Before those players, Hawks were better. The Cavs had a better record than Atlanta. And it's not necessarily that I think Mitchell makes the Cavs better than the Hawks with Murray. What I think is the Hawks are kind of at where they're at. I don't think Collins is going to get much better. Capella's not going to get better. I think that DeJounte, I know what he's going to be for them, which is a really good player, like a very, very good player. I'm not underselling DeJounte at all. I think he's an awesome addition for them. And I know Trae Young's going to be an offensive juggernaut. But what I do think is the Cavaliers are going to all get better. I think Garland's going to get better. I think that equally Mobley will get better. And I think Allen's going to get better. And then you add Donovan Mitchell, who's young and still can get better. I mean, they're pretty dang good. K West says Cavs should trade for Cam Reddish. No, Cam Reddish is terrible. I don't think so. Selapa says, yeah, they need a 3 that could run the wing. They do need a 3. But Chetty Osman, Isaac Okoro, Mark Stevens, they've got some options there at least that can fill those minutes, even if none of them are great. Jumpstop says, the bottom of the West crazy, like 4 teams were tanking. Yeah, it's going to be a really sad year for Sacramento. Kings fans, buckle up. Here's another stray from me. I think I'm getting famous for these at this point. But the Kings are trying to win, and they're still going to be right around those tanking teams. Like, they're going to be significantly better than them, but like one of those tanking teams is going to be like 12th in the West, and the Kings are going to be sitting there at 11th, missing the play-in tournament, which is funny. Be Better says still not better than Boston. Yeah, probably not. I mean, Boston just went to the finals, so like, yeah, probably. Jose Mato says no defense, my guy. Just wait. Okay, when they're a top 4 or 5 seed, like I'm predicting, they're going to be looked at pretty well for this trade because they're giving themselves a shot to be really competitive, which is not something you can say about Cleveland unless you literally say LeBron's name in the same sentence. So this is a win. Steven says Donovan did what he did with the Defensive Player of the Year and great role players. Colin played with a rebuilding team. Put Mitchell on those Cavs teams and see how many games they win. Not mad, just saying. Yeah, but like the point here is you put Colin on that Jazz team with the Defensive Player of the Year, and they're probably missing the playoffs still, or right at like the 8th seed instead of like. Here's one thing I don't think people understand: over the last 4 years of NBA basketball, the Jazz have won more games than any other franchise. The last 4 years since Donovan Mitchell debuted for the Utah Jazz, they have more wins than any NBA team, I believe. Actually, it might be after his rookie year. From year 2 to just this past year, they have more wins than any other NBA team. Like, Sexton's not doing that. I promise you. Promise you that. And there's a reason that Colin Sexton sat out in free agency the entire offseason. Just saying. Lord Zoe says they traded him. Yes, Donovan Mitchell got traded. J Ship says big trade, can't front. Same time they'll still beat the Rap. They still can't beat the Raps. I mean, we'll see. I think that would be a very fun and enjoyable series. I think those teams would be very competitive. Ryan says, oh, snap, Sheldon got time today. Ha, you're letting y'all know what's up. Yeah, some of these comments, I'm just kind of surprised what people are saying. Steven Goodell says, by the way, I'm not saying Mitchell isn't great. He is, but like you said, he is slightly overrated. I'd argue that Sexton is underrated. Yeah, I get what you're saying, Steven. I do. Like, and I agree with the fact that I think that Mitchell is slightly overrated. And I would say that Sexton is definitely underrated, but I still think there's a significant gap between those two players. I think that it's still $12 to $15 million difference between those two guys. I really do. Marco says the small guards are covered by the length of the back of the front court. Yes, I agree, Marco. I completely agree. Be Better says, you guys think you got another LeBron James miss me? He's not another LeBron. And this, I'm not a Cavs fan. Like, this is and I don't even like Donovan Mitchell. That's how you guys can tell I'm giving you the truth here. I don't really particularly like the Cavs. I'm not like a biased Cavs fan here. I like the Dallas Mavericks. And secondly, so I don't even have any real interest in this trade, like in terms of my own fandom. And secondly, I don't like Donovan Mitchell. But when I tell you that the Cavs got a lot better today, they got a lot better today. So Mwambi says they don't have defense in the backcourt, but their front court defense is nasty. Literally, it is. And if you guys don't know, Evan Mobley could guard any player in the league. Evan Mobley is incredible. If you haven't watched him enough from his rookie year, you need to go back and watch. Guards try and take him on in the pick and roll, and he just moves with them. He is a giraffe defensively. Evan Mobley is a freak, and if they didn't have Evan Mobley, I'd be like, oh my gosh, this is a disaster. But they have Evan Mobley. They have probably one of the most diverse, switchable big men of all time already. in terms of what he can do defensively, like, it's insane. And like Marco's saying here, full starting lineup under 26 years old. Like, that's hard to beat. Jose says, I can score 20 against Mitchell in a wheelchair. Jose, I would love to see film of you playing at the YMCA. So if you want to upload that on YouTube and link me that, I will watch that live on the channel. And if we can see you score 20 against Jim Bob Joe at the Y, then I'll maybe start to believe you on this. Jay Young says, why are there so many salty Raptors fans here? There's not salty Raptors fans. They're they're just Raptors fans are very, very diehard. They really like their team, which is good. I'm glad that the NBA is becoming a bigger and bigger deal in Canada. LeBall to the Cavs. I'm not dissing LeGoat. LeBall might make it there. We'll see. Grams Van Gundy. Oh no, not another Van Gundy. I really don't like Stan Van Gundy, but he says, I think Toronto will finish bottom of the East. Raptors fans, don't respond to that. He's just trying to get you guys riled up. Jay Schiff says, who's salty? Never said Cavs are anything. Cavs will be a much better team, and Mobley's a generational talent as well. Completely agree with that. That is a very good comment, and one that kind of surprised me. Not from you, Jay. I think that your comments have all been fine. But like, if there was any two teams that were going to have a little bit of a beef, you would think maybe Cleveland and Toronto, just because of the Rookie of the Year race. But clearly puts his best foot forward here. So I'm happy to see that. Marco says Okaro will be a difference maker. Yeah, maybe in a bad way, though, because he can't really shoot the basketball. No, he won't be. They won't be better than Boston, but 28 teams this year weren't better than Boston. I think that's the one issue. Ryan says, Jay, I'm a big Raps fan, but I need you to tone it back a bit here, bro. That's a very well put comment, Ryan. My goodness. ITK says, why not trade for Chris Paul instead? You'd only have to give up 10 Dogecoins. Probably, but I don't think Phoenix is really interested in doing that. So, Sella says, new sub, love your commentary. Thank you so much for being in here. Really appreciate all your guys' comments. You guys are the best. Without you, this wouldn't really be possible. I'd just be sitting here talking to my computer. So I'm really glad you guys are all watching. And I'm very thankful that you subscribed as well, Sella. So huge thank you to you. Derek says, W, good win for both teams. I think so as well, honestly. Powerful says, this team will shock some people. Don't sleep on them. A team to watch in the playoffs. I think so as well. You know, they got a playoff performer in Donovan Mitchell. Graham says he's way better than Sexton. Cut that out, y'all. That's what I think as well. Calvin says some of these responses to the trade are hilarious. You can really tell who watches the NBA versus who only watches their favorite team. Yeah, or only who watches Bleacher Report notifications. Calvin, I completely agree with you on that. Ryan liked my YMCA comment. That was a good one. I went off a little bit. Maybe I should have toned it down a little bit. I'm getting the same vibes as that one Knicks fan from the draft day. That was bad. Dulcifer says, Ryan Smith, the Jazz owner, says there's no amount of pain they won't go through to bring a parade to Salt Lake City. They're going to try. We'll see if this ultimately brings them one. Be Better says, without King James, y'all will never be good. Well, they're good now. So Cleveland's pretty serious. Not sure why there's these internet trolls and why they think they're super funny, but it's really, really not that funny, and it's pretty immature, honestly. Marco Gallen says Evan Mobley can cover on guards because even if beaten, there's still Allen covering in the paint. They've got a ton of length and size. Grams Van Gundy says the way you broke down that Lauri's not a top 100 player was masterful. Good work. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Hopefully you guys are just still enjoying the live stream. Again, I was not expecting a huge trade to go down today, but now we've been live for almost an hour and a half, and I love it. I really love being live. It's probably my most favorite thing to do on the YouTube channel. Anthony says Onyeka Okongwu is coming for the Hawks. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up starting over Capella by the end of the season. Possibly. I really liked Okongwu coming out of USC when he did. It's funny because he was kind of the Evan Mobley before Evan Mobley in a way. You know, switchable big, who is athletic, can protect the rim. And, you know, he's adding to his offensive game every year. So he had some huge blocks this past year. So we'll see if anything actually ever comes from it. ITK says, Sheldon, you have charisma. You should be on TV. I actually do work at a TV station, not quite on TV yet, but maybe we'll get there. Who knows? But I definitely love being on the YouTube right now and talking to you guys because I get to do whatever I want. On TV, you kind of told what you have to do, and you know you're kind of restricted. I can say whatever I want at any given moment here, which is really what makes this fun, especially when I'm responding to you guys. TV, I'd just be talking to a camera the whole time. On here, I'm actually reading comments and responding to the people watching. So it's a lot of fun. Ryan says, yo, I forgot the Knicks fan name, but I remember, we're going to have to go back through that stream, Ryan, at some point and watch that, because that was hilarious. I love that. No More Kings, welcome to the stream. He watches a ton of the content on the channel. I believe he's a diehard Pistons fan, so shout out to you, No More Kings. And that's right, I remember who you guys all like. It's all up here in my brain, just so that anytime I'm talking to you guys, I can talk to you about your favorite team. He says, just got home from work, but dang, Cleveland's really going for it. They're pushing their chips in. I like it. Definitely a crazy day. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, guys, if you haven't already. Mwambi says Cavs are going to be great, but I still stand by my Hawks. And you should, Mwambi. I don't want you guys to, I'm not trying to bash your team. This is the one thing about doing standings, too, especially when the East is as good as it is right now. People are going to say that I'm hating on their favorite team or something. The East is just really good. I have to put them in a 1 through 8 order. And it's not even about seeding. I just kind of was doing the best teams. And I think Milwaukee's still at the top of that. Jay Schiff says, how many All-Stars do you see the Cavs having? Any defensive player of the year candidates, all NBA, all defense? I see probably no all NBA this year. I think Evan Mobley could make all defense this year, though. And I think the Cavaliers probably have 1.5 All-Stars. I think Mitchell will make the All-Star game, and I think that they could have another guy potentially make it through a injury replacement, whether that's Garland, Allen, or Mobley. I'm not sure yet. I could see any of those three making it. Heck, I could see all 3 of them making it if there's a lot of injuries in the East. But more than likely, it's 1, maybe 1.5 with an injury replacement, a guy who probably wasn't going to get in but does because of an injury. John Suarez says the Cavs team will be a good competitive team for a long time after the Mitchell trade. That's exactly what I think. And he's like, that's the whole point. They're going to be very good for a while. Like that, it's just awesome for them. I'm very happy for the Cavaliers. Be Better says King James, the best player Cleveland ever had. Fact. I mean, yeah, LeBron's probably a top 2 player of all time. So yes, he is the best player the Cavaliers have ever had and probably ever will have. Perry says Cavs in the finals. Potentially, we'll have to watch for that. Sela wants to know, what's my take on the Pistons? I actually have a season preview on them, Sela, that I really recommend checking out. So after this live stream, go check that one out. I spent about 3 hours editing that video. Not even just recording it or making the stuff for it, just flat out editing. That is probably one of the best videos I've ever put out on the channel. I really recommend checking it out. There was a lot of work that went into it. And you also probably want to check out the all-rookie predictions as well, because there's a certain player in there that I love that I talked about explicitly. So go check those out, Sela, and you're going to really enjoy what you see. Jose Mato says Cavs are the new Sacramento Kings of the East. Not true, because they're actually make the playoffs here. So that's something the Kings haven't done since 2006. All these people are getting mad at Jose Matos. I might have to put him in timeout if there's another bad comment. Marco Gallen says Garland has a clause in his contract for $30 million if he ends up making all NBA. Yeah, that's very similar to what Jason Tatum had a few years ago. Tatum actually missed out that year. So we'll see. Garland probably doesn't make all NBA though. Powerful 7 TKD says the East will be tough. Can't wait to watch. It's going to be a great year. So glad to have NBA League Pass again, because I will be watching probably 2 or 3 games every night. And that's how I can sit on here and talk for hours on end about your guys' favorite team and not sound like an absolute idiot, because I watch all the games as much as I can. Jay Anderson says, if I'm the Kings owner, sell the dang team. That's a good one. We'll see if anything ever happens there to ownership. But as of right now, they're going to feel really good. Jose Matos feels super powerful right now. He learned what emojis were today, as you can tell, because he's starting to spam them. So ITK says I would only give up that much for Mitchell if it's going to put me over the top. Yeah, I get that too, but I think that they even if it doesn't put them over the top, they're going to be very good. So that's the fun, exciting part. Calvin Cambridge says, I like Allen, but I think he made the All-Star team last year just because of location of All-Star weekend. I can't see him doing that again, honestly. I agree with that. That's why I was earlier when I was talking about it, I was like, well, Allen was like an All-Star kind of. Like, I don't think Allen will make it. The one thing, though, is like if the league's going to put in centers, then like it's a little bit more open for him because he's one of the better centers in the Eastern Conference. But realistically, like if they take the top 13 players from the East, he's not in that group probably ever, which is okay. I mean, he's a very good player though. Mwambi says Garland is far from All-NBA. He will be battling to make the All-Star game, but I don't think he will. Yeah, he'll be like right on the cusp. He'll probably be like, out of the 13 players, he'll probably be like the 14th, 15th guy. And Sel, I'm glad. Make sure to leave a comment on there too, what you think by the end of the video, just in that way I can hear your thoughts on what I talked about the Pistons. One thing too in there for the Pistons season preview, Selah, I didn't talk about Isaiah Livers much in that video. I should have. I like his game. I think he's a really good fit next to Ivy and Cade. So when you're watching, if you're waiting for an Isaiah Livers bit, I didn't cover him in that, because I talked for about 20-25 minutes usually without notes. So sometimes I forget to mention something, but I think you'll really enjoy that video, and just know that I do think Isaiah Livers is a good player, even though I didn't mention him explicitly on that. No More King says it was a great video. Thank you so much for that. I put a lot of work into that one. Texas Sports says, how was your scouting experience during Summer League? It was very good. I had a great time out in Las Vegas. For those of you who are newer to the channel, you probably don't know this about me. I actually went out to a pro scouting opportunity out in Las Vegas with some people who are in the NBA and some really prominent trainers. If you guys know the name Drew Hanlon, he works with Jason Tatum. He works with Myers Leonard. He works with a lot of NBA players. I know Myers Leonard's name is not as big as Jason Tatum's, but he works with a lot of guys, a lot of really good players, a lot of all-stars, and also some guys who are, fringe players, that kind of stuff. He works with everybody. I got to meet him personally, talk to him about, what I do here on YouTube. And I've been in contact with him a little bit. I also got to meet some guys who used to have development roles on NBA teams. And I also talked to some coaches from certain teams around the league. I'm not going to go into too much specific on that, on who I got to talk to and everything, just because, they spent a lot of their time talking with me. And I don't want them to, like, all of a sudden have people reaching out to them randomly and be like, oh, well, Utility Sports sent us, because I'll be like, oh, sorry, guys. I probably shouldn't have name dropped you. So, but, I got to meet a lot of people that are really cool. Drew Hanlon's not going to care. If you haven't watched any of his stuff, go check him out. He's on Instagram. He's got some really cool stuff too. Ryan says, what do you think about Chet getting injured? It's unfortunate. I was excited to watch him this year and everything, but I think this is going to work out well for Oklahoma City because he would have been a big difference maker for them. And with him injured, they're going to lose more games than they would have if he played. And one other thing, Texas Sports too, just being at the games was awesome too. If I really recommend going to Las Vegas for Summer League. It was awesome. Wambi says Trae Young had that clause and made All-NBA last year. He did. Trae Young's a little bit of a different story though than Darius Garland. Trae Young's better than Garland, so I think that's the situation. Stella wants to know what will happen with Kevin Durant. I think he'll play this year in Brooklyn, and I don't think anything else will really happen. Ryan says, should he have played in any summer league beside the actual summer league, or just a freak accident because of the condensation? I don't even think it has anything to do with condensation. I think he maybe just like landed on his foot weird. And like, it was like a weird plane transition where like he had a guy coming right at him and he was trying to contort his body back to square up with the guy. 7-footers are going to have injuries. And it's definitely kind of concerning that he had one in his foot, but ultimately, like, I think it's more of a freak thing than anything. And, basketball players play year round, whether that was at a pro-am event, like, think about it, he could have been scrimmaging with the Thunder and that could have happened. Like, I don't think it's a concern. I'm glad that it was at one of those events that is, compensated by the league. So then that way he doesn't lose out on his rookie deal if he were never to recover, because that would have been really bad for his own individual career. But ultimately, he's in a really good spot. ITK said Chet thought he could stop LeBron. Yeah, that was his biggest mistake. Trey Big says, when is Mitchell a free agent? Will he leave? I think he's got 3 years left on his deal. So he's not a free agent until the summer of 2025. And I don't think he's like planning on leaving, but ultimately he will at some point. Mwambi says Mobley and Allen bigger stars than Garland. I think that Mobley is for sure. I think Allen and Garland are kind of in similar tiers, but I think Garland, since he has the ball more, puts up better numbers offensively, which gets him more likely to be an all-star, if that makes sense. Calvin Cambridge says nothing like a foot injury to put on some weight. Maybe it'll be good for Chet long term. I think that's a good assumption as well that maybe he can work on his body a little bit and then get better. So Mwambi says, do you think the Cavs can be the Mavs with this new lineup? Can they be the Mavs? Or do you mean, if you mean, beat. Okay, beat. Here we go. We have your new comment. I think that they probably would be right in that kind of area. They would have to meet in the finals for a 7-game matchup, so I'm not really going to worry about that. Jay Anderson says Isaiah Livers the next Klay Thompson. That'd be awesome if he is. I don't think he's going to be quite that good, but I think he's going to be pretty good. I think he's going to be like a little bit of a worse version of Dorian Finney-Smith, which is, by the way, an awesome player to have. I really thought that Dorian Finney-Smith was a better player than Jalen Brunson this last playoffs. I know people are going to think that's crazy. If you go back and rewatch those games and watch who Dorian Finney-Smith was guarding every night, you're going to see it from my perspective. Perry Burney says everyone in the league loves Garland. He will be picked for an all-star selection. I hope so. It'd be sweet for him if he does make it. Jay Anderson with some Caden Ivey hype, top 2 backcourt, and at 8-2, I like that. Down the road, we'll see. I think it's definitely one of those high upside backcourts. And then No More Kings 1 says that court made his foot stick more than he was expecting. Yeah, that's a good point. Like, I don't know if, like, it just comes down to the way that his weight came down onto his foot. I wouldn't worry as much about the Pro-Am. Sometimes you're just going to have injuries like that. There's even when the NBA has like games in Mexico, they've had issues with the court before. So you never know. It's hard to tell for sure. Maybe it was because of the court, or maybe this was something that was going to happen regardless, just based on, Liz Frank injuries tend to hit bigger players. Usually it's more centers, like Joel Embiid had one, I believe his rookie year in the league, that really sidelined him. So you never know. But from everything I've seen, Chet, when he's healthy, he's going to be really, really good. Trey Big says, if Cavs play Boston, Bucks in playoffs, how does Garland and Mitchell hold up defensively? Well, one of them is going to be guarding Drew Holiday. So it's like, are you worried about Drew Holiday beating you one-on-one? Probably not. Middleton, that's where you run into some issues. But at the same time, if the Bucks have Grayson Allen on the floor, like, you just put Mitchell or Garland on him, like Bickerstaff's going to have to be creative, but the positive here is you have Allen and you have Mobley behind these two the entire time. And no, I don't think that Cleveland will beat Boston or Milwaukee, because I think that they don't have a matchup for Giannis and Middleton, which is why that team's probably the best team in the East. But right now, I don't think any team really beats Milwaukee or Boston besides each other in the playoffs. Maybe Philly. Philly could have a shot if Harden comes back the way that I think he can. I think that Philly's going to be right in the thick of things too. But, for Cleveland, everyone's like championship or bust. That means 29 teams a year shouldn't even play. Like, one team's going to win. So I just don't think of it that same way. I think that having a good product, being competitive, getting to the second round of the playoffs, having a shot to get to the conference finals, and maybe with an injury you do, like, it puts you in spots where maybe you can win one. Texas Sports says, thanks for the video and live chat. And as always, it was fun. Yeah, for sure, Texas. Glad to have you back in here. I'm looking forward to some more awesome live streams and videos coming up in the future too. And I'm excited to see your comments. No more King says, still an unlucky and unfortunate thing for Chet. I feel bad for him. I do too. But again, I don't think this is the end of the world either for them. Marco Gallen says Garland next year will be a top 5 point guard in the league. That's a bold take. We'll see. Jay Anderson says, I remember when Donovan Mitchell was compared to Dwayne Wade. Now I compare Jaden Ivey to Dwayne Wade. Am I being biased right now? Or you are saying I am being biased. I don't think that Ivey compares well to Wade. I think Ivey compares really well to Russell Westbrook, which is a very good thing to compare well to. Jose Mato still going for it. And Calvin Cambridge says, thanks for the Philly love. I feel like we can make some noise in the playoffs this year. James Harden is the most hated player in the league for no reason. James Harden is dominant. He has the 3rd most points of the 2010s, despite coming off the bench the first couple of years of those. James Harden is unbelievable. And the fact that people, like fans specifically, this is how you can tell there's a huge difference between people who are in the NBA and people who are not. The people in the NBA all agree that James Harden is worth $30+ million a year and trading a bunch of first round picks for. and any team that was interested in him, like, was going to be offering multiple first-round picks and good young players, and then fans just say, "Oh, James Harden, he's trash. He doesn't win in the playoffs." Like, it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, what? Like, think about this Rockets lineup that he was supposed to win with. He had like Trevor Ariza, Eric Gordon, Patrick Beverly, Clint Capella. What have any of those guys done by themselves? Yes, Ariza won a couple championships with the Lakers with Kobe Bryant. Okay, like Gerald Green was there. Gerald Green was, for most of his career, was most prominent for being part of the package that got traded for Kevin Garnett. Like, like Houston really never had anybody around him. Chris Paul was very good there. Other than Chris Paul, like, his next best teammate was what? Dwight Howard? Like, do I make my point clear? Ryan Hillier says, great stream so far, bro. You are a brilliant basketball mind. Appreciate you, Ryan. Everyone, I will probably be wrapping up here in just a couple minutes. So get your question in now, and then I will be wrapping up the stream. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel for more. Marco says Sixers will be amazing this year if they can manage the minutes and Embiid is on the floor. 40-plus minutes in regular season for a guy who's injury-prone is the recipe for disaster. Yeah, I think this next year they won't have to do that as much, especially now that they have PJ Tucker. They have a kind of a blend of small ball that they could play that I think is a little bit more viable than what they tried to go with last year with like Millsap and Georges Niang being their 4-5 combo. Like, yeah, I think that this year they have a little bit more around Harden and Embiid, and I think Maxey's going to get a little bit better again. I think he could have a huge year. I had a dream that Maxey had a 56-point game the other night. I woke up and I thought, wow, that wasn't real, but that would be crazy if he did that. So we'll see. Jimmy Little says, if he went to the Knicks, this would be front page media then saying Knicks a top East team. Why people hate on small market teams, go Cavs. Jimmy, this is why. And this is what you're going to find out here. As someone who's a YouTuber, I can look into all the analytics about what people are looking up and what gets searched. And the reason why this is the case is because all year long, everybody's looking up the New York Knicks because it's New York and there's 8 million people who live in one city, and that state is huge. They have a ton of residents, so there's easily going to be more searches there, right? More people care about the Knicks because there's more people in New York. There's more people around the Knicks. So they want to know about the Knicks. So they search more, and that means that if you write an article about the New York Knicks, you're way more likely to have your article read because there's way more people searching it, whereas Cleveland has way less people. So they have less people searching, they're less prominent, and that means less people write about them, because ultimately when you're in the business of writing, which is what a lot of these journalists are, all they care about is how many people read their article. They're going to write for the bigger market teams because it's more likely they get clicks. And I'm sorry about that. That's what makes this so special here at Utility Sports. I just made a Detroit Pistons season preview. ESPN would never, ever, ever do that. No article or journalist besides one that specifically covers the team would do that. I do that here at Utility Sports. That's what makes this page different. And this channel is I cover all the teams because I love the NBA. And I care about the NBA, and I know you guys do too, which is why I want to cover every single team. Brandon says, how good will Mathurin be with Tyrese Halliburton dishing to him? First all-rookie team. I do have an all-rookie team video out on the channel, Brandon. I really recommend you go check that one out. I spent a ton of time on it, made great graphics for it and everything. And it does talk about your boy Benedict Mathurin in there a little bit. And I even actually do talk about how he's going to be a finisher for Tyrese Halliburton's facilitating. So make sure to go check that out. Wambi says Trae Young had a 56-point game, though. He did. Trae Young is him. Calvin Cambridge says Ben Simmons left an unexpected hole in the roster for most of last year, which is partly why Embiid played so much. I completely agree with that, as does Ryan. Jose Mato says he was leaving, but now he's back, and say how many people live in Cleveland. Let's go ahead and pull up Cleveland population because we will do a little bit of a comparison here between these two. Cleveland has 383,000 people living in it, which is relatively a small city in the United States, whereas New York City has 8.4 million people. That is why there's such a difference on the article. Jay Anderson, ESPN, gulp, the Lakers like every day. Yeah, literally. Marco Gallen says, Calvin, also the fact that Sixers didn't have a decent center off the bench, that hurt them as well. Yes. No More Kings 1 says, best NBA content on YouTube, man. You have a talent for it. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. And Ryan says this page is different because I'm a huge Raptors fan with what I would consider myself knowledgeable too, but he knows as much as I do about my own team, maybe more. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for that. I think that's a great great comment to wrap this stream up. Really appreciate all of you guys so very much. You guys are really the best. Mary Ortiz says, that's why I love this channel. I know a lot of media like to overlook teams like the Magic. Yes, Mary, we're going to try and get to a Magic season preview. I've been really busy lately, so I'm not sure how many season previews I'm going to get to, but I'm going to try my hardest to get to all of your guys' favorite teams. Mary, I know you like the Mavericks too. Don't worry. We'll get to a Mavericks one as well for sure on the channel. So hopefully you guys did enjoy today's live stream. I've been live for about an hour and 45 minutes. Again, I was in the middle of doing something pretty important. I completely dropped that so I could live stream today. So hopefully you guys really did enjoy. If you did, make sure to smash that like button. Again, if you haven't subscribed to the channel quite yet, please do so. I'd really appreciate it. It goes a long way in helping motivate me, I think, to make more videos. It feels good every time I see we get a new subscriber. So thank you guys all so much. And we'll catch you in the very next Utility Sports video. Go check out some of the other ones on the channel.